In this video, we're going to continue talking about portfolio theory. And specifically, I'm going to give you a definition of risk. Now, this is going to be one of my most important videos. I've talked about risk a lot in these videos, but I've talked about it in a very conceptual way. What I'm going to give you in this video is a mathematical definition of risk. And if you can grasp this concept of what I'm about to talk about, it enables you to do all kinds of cool things in finance. Once you have that mathematical understanding, you can start using your understanding of risk in financial modeling, in economic simulations, and in portfolio theory, which is what we're talking about. So, let's put up the definition. And it's this. In finance, we describe risk as the likely variance from the current price. So what does that mean? I'm going to give you an example, and we're going to walk through this step by step so you understand what we're talking about here. So let's use an example. Let's say you're looking at an investment opportunity. You see this opportunity for a future cash flow of $120. So if you make your investment, you can get this future cash flow of $120, and you assess the riskiness of this at around 20%. So how much are you willing to pay for this investment? Well, we know we can use the present value formula, and we can calculate $120 at 20% risk. We can discount that amount back to what you'd be willing to pay today, and that would be $100. Because the present value formula, we take it and we say 100 times 1.2 equals 120. So here we are. We know we'd be willing to pay $100 for this investment. So we go out into the marketplace, we buy this investment. Now we're holding it now at $100 at 20% risk. So if we look at our current situation, what we have is the $100. We have this assumption that in the future it's going to be worth $120. And we describe this risk, the 20% risk, as this variance of how we're going to get from $100 to $120. That's what we're talking about here. The uncertainty of my current investment changing into the future. It's that uncertainty that we're talking about, and we can describe it as variance. And the variance should reflect that 20% change that our assumptions are based on. So we're expecting this 20% change up, and if it could be a 20% change up, you better believe it could be a 20% change down. So what you end up with are these zones of potential prices into the future. And in this case, it's a plus or minus 20%. But riskier investments would have wider zones. Less risky investments would have smaller zones because there's more certainty of where those prices are going to end up. And so this is a huge concept to understand, that we're dealing with, when we're dealing with our investments, we're dealing with these zones of possible price fluctuations out into the future. And these zones are based on our assumptions. Now I want to take a second and talk about the fact that these are assumptions. I mean, if you look back at the definition, it's the likely variance from the current price. So, there's no guarantee that the price is going to end up in these zones. It could be a lot more, it could be a lot less, but that's not the point of what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're trying to specify what is the most likely outcome. Where do we think it's going to end up? And what really is our amount of certainty with those predictions? So when we put all of this together, what we're really doing is we're trying to quantify our assumptions, and that allows us to predict the future. Because now we're sitting here and we have this understanding now of these are my investments, this is where it's likely to end up, and now that I have that data, that knowledge, it enables me to improve the strategic decisions I'm making today about my finances. And that's the goal here. And that's really what we're doing in portfolio theory. In portfolio theory, you're looking at your investments. You have all these investments, and what you want to do is you want to say, okay, each one of these investments, where do I think it's going to end up in the future? And knowing that, then it allows you to make smart decisions on how to put your portfolio together today to maximize your profit.